Welcome to Hercule Mysteries. I'm Elias Thorne. Pull up a cosy chair, perhaps with a cup of tea in hand, and let's embark on a tale of intrigue and deduction in the classic style of Agatha Christie. Today, we're unravelling Blood at Silver Reed Pier, a Hercule Poirot killer mystery. This is a long, relaxing journey, perfect for unwinding, so settle in. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more mysteries. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I'd love to hear if it's a rainy evening in London or a sunny afternoon across the pond. Chapter 1. Arrival at Silver Reed. The year was 1927, a time when the world still echoed with the ghosts of the Great War, and the English countryside clung to its traditions like ivy to ancient stone. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with his egg-shaped head, waxed moustache, and an unerring faith in the power of order and method, stepped off the 3:15 train from London at the quaint station of Silver Reed. The platform was a weathered affair, planks groaning underfoot as if protesting the intrusion of modernity. A salty breeze swept in from the North Sea, carrying the mingled scents of brine, tar from the docks, and the faint, acrid smoke of coal fires from the village beyond. Poirot adjusted his immaculate Homburg hat, ensuring not a single hair was out of place, and surveyed his surroundings with those keen, cat-like green eyes that missed nothing. He had come at the insistent urging of his dear friend Captain Arthur Hastings. In a letter penned in Hastings's characteristically enthusiastic hand, full of exclamation points and underlinings, the captain had extolled the virtues of a restful weekend by the sea. "My dear Poirot," it read, "you work too hard, old chap. Come to Silver Reed for a spot of fresh air, bracing walks along the pier, and perhaps a round of golf if the weather holds. No mysteries, no murders, just good company and the sound of waves. Lady Evelyn Hawthorne has invited a small party to her manor, and she's most eager to meet the famous detective. Do say yes." Poirot, ever the creature of habit, had initially resisted. "The sea air, it is invigorating, yes," he had murmured to himself while sipping his tisane in his tidy London flat on Whitehaven Mansions. "But the English coast, mon ami, it is full of the unpredictable." The fogs shuffled away. Poirot took a moment to absorb the scene. Silver Reed Station was modest, with a single track curving away into the misty hills, flanked by wild gorse and heather that swayed in the wind. Beyond, the village sprawled lazily toward the sea, a cluster of whitewashed cottages with slate roofs, a squat church tower piercing the skyline, and the harbour where fishing boats bobbed like corks on the choppy waves. The pier itself was the jewel, or perhaps the thorn in Silver Reed's crown. Jutting out defiantly into the North Sea, it was a Victorian marvel of iron and wood, built in 1882 by the late Sir Reginald Hawthorne, a self-made industrialist whose fortune came from steel mills in the Midlands. The structure stretched nearly a quarter-mile into the water, adorned with ornate lamp-posts that glowed like will-o'-the-wisps in the evenings, a grand pavilion at its midpoint for teas and dances, and at the very end, a sturdy boathouse that housed Sir Reginald's pride and joy, the yacht Silver Reed. Poirot had read about it in the papers years ago, a symbol of opulence in an era of excess, now faded somewhat, its paint peeling under the relentless assault of salt and storm. A honk from a motor car interrupted his reverie. Captain Hastings pulled up in a gleaming Morris Cowley, its engine purring with the confidence of British engineering. Hastings leaped out, his face alight with boyish enthusiasm, his tweed suit rumpled as always, a contrast to Poirot's sartorial perfection. "Poirot, splendid to see you, old boy. Hop in, Lady Evelyn's expecting us at the manor. The drive's only a few miles, but the views are top-notch." As they motored along the winding coastal road, cliffs rising sheer on one side and the sea crashing below on the other, Hastings filled Poirot in on the details of their hosts and fellow guests. It was a small gathering, he explained, centred around Hawthorne Manor, the imposing family seat perched on a bluff overlooking the pier. Lady Evelyn Hawthorne, widow of Sir Reginald, was the matriarch, a woman of 60 with a spine of steel and a wit as sharp as the rocks below. "She's held the estate together since Reginald's death 5 years ago," Hastings said, navigating a pothole with a jolt. "London's West End. Former actress, married a French count who turned out to be a cad. Divorced now, back in England with little to her name but her charm and a string of admirers. Rumours link her to Victor, Romantically, you know. But she's engaged to young Reggie Lyle, the artist chap. Reggie Lyle was the bohemian of the group, a dashing 28-year-old painter who specialised in seascapes and had set up a studio in one of the pier's disused pavilions. Talented fellow, but flighty. Owes Victor a packet from some failed art venture. Lives on dreams and Lady Evelyn's patronage. Dr. Elias Croft rounded out the suspects, guests. A village physician in his 50s, with a pronounced limp from a war wound and a gruff manner that hid, Hastings suspected, a deeper bitterness. Sir Reginald sued him years back over a medical mishap. A patient died under his care during a storm at sea. Ruined Croft's reputation. He's been nursing a grudge ever since, though he still tends to the family. Finally, there was Margaret Maggie Thorne. No relation to your humble narrator, mind you. A loyal companion and secretary to Lady Evelyn. In her late 40s, spinsterish and efficient, with wire-rimmed spectacles and a no-nonsense air. She's been with the Hawthorns for decades, Hastings noted. Inherited a modest sum in Sir Reginald's will, but whispers say she feels short-changed. Devoted, though, the glue that holds the manor together. As the Morris crested the hill, Hawthorn Manor came into view, a Gothic edifice of grey stone, with turrets cloaked in ivy and mullioned windows that caught the fading afternoon light. The gardens sloped down to the cliff's edge, terraced with rose bushes battered by the wind, and a gravel drive circled a fountain where a stone mermaid spouted water into a lily-choked basin. Thunder rumbled distantly over the sea, promising a storm, and Poirot felt an inexplicable chill, as if the house itself harboured secrets. Hastings parked with a flourish, and they were met at the door by a butler, Jenkins, whose starched uniform and impassive face bespoke years of discreet service. Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, welcome. Her ladyship is in the drawing-room. The interior was a testament to Victorian grandeur, polished oak panel with continental flair. Madame, the pleasure is mine. The train, it was punctual, and the scenery, most invigorating. The other guests were assembled. Victor, lounging by the mantel with a cigarette, his sharp features softened by a welcoming smile. Clara, radiant in a silk gown the colour of seafoam, her laughter like tinkling bells as she chatted with Reggie, who sketched idly on a notepad. Dr. Croft, brooding in an armchair with a medical journal, and Maggie, bustling about with a tea tray, her movements precise and unobtrusive. Cocktails were served, gin rickeys for the gentlemen, sherry for the ladies, and conversation flowed like the tide outside. Victor expounded on the need for progress. The pier could be a gold mine, Auntie. Imagine arcades, cinemas, bring in the tourists. Lady Evelyn demurred firmly. It's not about money, Victor. It's heritage. Clara flirted lightly with Reggie, her eyes occasionally darting to Victor. Dr. Croft grumbled about the weather aggravating his leg, and Maggie ensured everyone's glass was filled. Poirot, sipping his tisane, insisting on it over alcohol, observed it all. The tensions were subtle. A sharpened glance here, a tight smile there. Mon Dieu, he thought, this restful gathering. It simmers like a pot about to boil. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, painting the sea in hues of crimson and gold, dinner was announced. Little did they know, the stage was set for tragedy, and the pier below would soon run red with blood. Chapter 2. The Crime Discovered. As the sun sank below the horizon, casting long shadows over the churning North Sea, the atmosphere at Hawthorn Manor shifted from polite civility to something more charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. Dinner had been announced by Jenkins the butler, with his customary solemnity, and the guests filed into the dining room, a cavernous space adorned with crystal chandeliers that twinkled like distant stars, and heavy damask curtains drawn against the gathering dusk. The table was set with gleaming silver and fine bone china, a remnant of Sir Reginald's prosperous days, and the scent of roasted pheasant mingled with the underlying brine from the open windows. Hercule crushed ice with lemon wedges. Poirot savoured one delicately, his moustache twitching with approval. "Exquisite, madame," he complimented Lady Evelyn. "The sea, it gives and it takes, but in this case, it gives most generously. Lady Evelyn inclined her head, her pearls catching the candlelight. "Our coast provides, Monsieur Poirot, though lately it seems more inclined to take, storms eroding the cliffs, tides claiming the unwary." Her eyes flicked toward Victor, who was already deep into his second oyster, slurping with less refinement. Conversation flowed tentatively at first, touching on safe topics, the changeable English weather, the latest London fashions, and Reggie's upcoming exhibition of seascapes in a small gallery off Bond Street. "The pier at dawn," Reggie enthused, his voice carrying a poetic lilt. The light fracturing on the waves like shattered glass, its inspiration itself. Clara smiled adoringly at him, but Poirot noted how her gaze strayed to Victor, who returned it with a knowing wink. As the pheasant was carved, succulent and gamey, accompanied by buttered potatoes and glazed carrots, the talk turned inevitably to the pier. Victor, emboldened by the claret from Sir Reginald's cellar, leaned forward. "Aunt Evelyn, we must discuss the future. The pier's upkeep is bleeding the estate dry. With a few modern touches, perhaps a cinema pavilion or slot machines, we could turn it into a veritable Blackpool. Tourists from London would flock here." Lady Evelyn's fork paused mid-air, her expression hardening. "Victor, we've been over this. The pier is not a carnival sideshow. Your uncle built it as a testament to elegance, not vulgarity. Selling it off piecemeal would dishonour his memory." Her tone was measured, but the undercurrent of steel was unmistakable. Dr. Croft, who had been silent thus far, nursing his wine with a grim set to his jaw, interjected gruffly. "Memory? Ha! Reginald's legacy cost more than money. Remember the boating accident in 15? That storm took 3 lives and he blamed me, for not saving them all. Sued me for malpractice. Ruined my practice. If not for the villagers' loyalty, I'd be destitute." His limp seemed more pronounced as he shifted in his chair, the old war wound a convenient veil for deeper pains. Maggie stiffened, his hand tightening on his glass. As coffee was poured, strong and black with petit fours on the side, the group retired to the veranda. It overlooked the pier, now silhouetted against the moonlit sea, gas lamps flickering along its length like hesitant fireflies. The wind had picked up, howling through the cliffs, carrying the distant crash of waves. Reggie, ever the romantic, proposed a midnight stroll. The storm's brewing, perfect for sketching the turmoil of nature. Clara hesitated, glancing at the darkening sky, but agreed, linking her arm with his. Victor joined them, cigarette dangling from his lips. Dr. Croft begged off, citing his leg. "These old bones don't fancy the chill." Lady Evelyn retired to her chambers with a headache, Maggie attending her. Hastings, enthusiastic as ever, persuaded Poirot. "Come along, Poirot. A brisk walk to settle the meal." The pier creaked ominously under their footsteps, the boards slick with spray. Salt stung their faces as they progressed, the pavilion's shuttered windows rattling in the gale. At the far end loomed the boathouse, a robust structure of weathered oak and iron reinforcements, its door secured by a heavy padlock. Victor produced the key from his pocket, the sole one, he assured them, entrusted by Lady Evelyn for safekeeping. "Family privilege," he quipped, unlocking it with a click. Inside, the air was musty, redolent of varnish and rope. Sir Reginald's yacht, the Silver Reed, bobbed gently in its berth, its polished hull gleaming under the lantern Reggie lit. The group admired it briefly, Clara tracing the brass fittings with a finger, Hastings exclaiming over the craftsmanship, Reggie sketching hasty lines on his pad. "Eerie at night," Clara murmured, shivering, "like a tomb afloat." Victor locked up as they departed, pocketing the key once more. "Safe as the Bank of England." Back at the manor, the party dispersed to their rooms. Poirot, in his guest chamber with its 4-poster bed and sea-view window, pondered the evening's revelations. "Motives, they swirl like the eddies below," he mused, twirling his moustache. Sleep came fitfully, the storm's rumble a constant companion. Dawn broke grey and tempest. Barred window, they beheld the gruesome sight. Victor sprawled face down on the plank floor, an ornate dagger protruding from his back, blood staining the wood in a dark pool. No sign of struggle, no weapon discarded. The dagger was from the manor's drawing-room collection, missing since the previous evening. The yacht floated serenely, untouched. Poirot directed Hastings to fetch the key from Victor's pocket, visible through the glass, but the door was bolted from within? No, the padlock was external. But how had the killer entered and exited? Impossible, Hastings gasped, his breath fogging the pain. We locked it last night. No one's been here. The sand around is unmarked by the tide. Poirot's eyes narrowed, his little grey cells igniting. Mon ami, the crime, it is discovered. But the puzzle, it begins. A locked room, a victim alone, yet pierced by betrayal. We must summon the authorities, but first, observe. The local sergeant, Wilkins, arrived soon after, a sturdy man with a moustache rivaling Poirot's own. As the door was forced open, the lock yielding with a protesting snap, the full horror unfolded. Victor had been stabbed through the heart, death instantaneous around midnight, per Croft's grim assessment. No footprints inside save Victor's own. The key rested in his trouser pocket, the padlock intact from without. Lady Evelyn stifled a sob. Who could have done this, and how? Poirot knelt, examining the scene with meticulous care. The impossible, madame. It is merely the improbable in disguise. Chapter 3. Investigation begins. The grey dawn clung to Silver Reed like a reluctant shroud, the North Sea's waves pounding the shore with relentless fury, as if echoing the turmoil within Hawthorne Manor. Hercule Poirot stood at the threshold of the boathouse, his compact figure silhouetted against the breaking light, his moustache impeccably groomed despite the early hour. The door, now forced open by Sergeant Wilkins' sturdy shoulder, hung askew on its hinges, revealing the macabre tableau inside. Victor Hawthorne's body, still and lifeless, the dagger's hilt protruding like an accusation from his back. The air was thick with the metallic tang of blood, mingled with the boathouse's habitual sense of salt blood, his patent leather shoes leaving no mark on the dusty planks. Hastings followed, notebook in hand, his face pale but eager. The rest of the household hovered at a distance on the pier, bundled in coats against the chill. Lady Evelyn, stoic yet with eyes red-rimmed. Clara, leaning on Reggie's arm, her beauty marred by shock. Dr. Croft, bag at his side, looking grim. And Maggie, wringing her hands in quiet distress. The boathouse was a functional space, perhaps 20 feet by 30, with the yacht Silver Reed occupying most of it, tethered securely in its watery cradle. High shelves lined one wall, cluttered with coils of rope, lanterns and nautical tools. A small workbench stood in the corner, scattered with varnish tins and brushes, evidence of recent maintenance. Victor lay near the centre, face down, arms splayed as if in mid-fall. The dagger, Poirot noted, was an antique piece, its handle inlaid with mother-of-pearl, undoubtedly from the Manor's collection. No footprints disturbed the floor, save for faint ones matching Victor's shoes, leading from the door to his final position. "Time of death, Doctor?" Poirot inquired, turning to Croft, who knelt awkwardly beside the body, his limp making the motion laborious. Croft palpated the limbs with professional detachment. "Rigours setting in, I'd say between 11 last night and 1 this morning. Stabbed straight through the heart, quick at least. No defensive wounds, so he didn't see it coming, or trusted his attacker." Poirot nodded, his little grey cells whirring. "And the lock, let us examine it closely. The padlock was heavy iron, unscratched, the key fitting smoothly when tested. No signs of picking or tampering. The windows, narrow slits barred with rusted iron, admitted only slivers of light and were sealed shut. The roof, accessed via a ladder outside, showed no loose tiles or entry points. Beneath the pier, the sand was smooth, washed clean by the high tide that had peaked at midnight, erasing any potential tracks. "A locked room mystery, Poirot," Hastings whispered, his voice hushed with awe. "Like that business on the Nile, eh? Précisément, mon ami. But every locked room has its key, hidden in the mind of the clever." Poirot's gaze fell a slight tremble as she accepted a cup. Victor was ambitious, yes, but family. Who could wish him harm? Poirot leaned forward, his tone gentle yet probing. "Madame, tell me of the pier. Your husband's legacy. Victor wished to sell it? She sighed. Yes, for progress. We argued often. Last night over dinner it grew heated. But murder? No. Her alibi. Retired by 10, alone in her room, reading until sleep came. No witnesses. Next, Clara Beaumont, her eyes wide and luminous, a handkerchief twisted in her lap. Victor and I... We were close once, she confessed, glancing at the door as if fearing interruption. An affair, brief and foolish. He ended it weeks ago for some London heiress. I was hurt, jealous perhaps, but I loved Reggie now. She claimed to have walked back from the pier with Reggie, parting at the manor door around 10:30, then straight to bed. Reggie could corroborate the walk, but after? Reggie Lyle followed, his artist's smock still flecked with paint from a nocturnal session. I owed Victor money, a loan for my studio. He was pressing for repayment, threatened to evict me from the pier pavilion. But kill him? Absurd. I was sketching in my room till dawn. No alibi beyond his word, and his hands, Poirot noted, bore faint ink stains. Could they hide blood? Dr. Croft entered limping heavily, his face etched with fatigue. Victor blocked my license renewal last month, said I was unfit after the old lawsuit with his uncle. Revenge? Perhaps in thought, but not deed. I took a sedative for my leg pain around 10, slept through. His medical bag, however, was missing a vial of morphine. Stolen? Or unrelated? Maggie Thorne was last, efficient as ever, though her spectacles fogged with emotion. I served the family faithfully for 20 years. Sir Reginald left me a pittance in his will. Victor laughed when I asked for more. We quarrelled days ago. She had checked on Lady Evelyn at 11, then retired to her attic room, alone. Motives crystallised like frost on a window pane. Inheritance for Lady Evelyn, jealousy for Clara, debt for Reggie, professional ruin for Croft, resentment for Maggie. All alibis porous. Shadowy figure on the pier at midnight. But the man was known for his fondness for ale, his tale unreliable. Gathering the group briefly in the drawing room, Poirot announced, "The investigation, it commences. Lies weave like nets in the sea, but the truth, it shall be hauled in." Tensions simmered, glances darted like minnows. By noon, as rain began to patter against the windows, Poirot retreated to ponder. "The impossible crime," he murmured, "demands the improbable solution." Chapter 4. Clues and Red Herrings. The afternoon sun struggled to pierce the heavy clouds over Silver Reed, casting a pallid glow on the pier that now seemed more like a gallows than a Victorian relic. Hercule Poirot, undeterred by the persistent drizzle, had commandeered the manor's conservatory as his temporary headquarters, a glass-enclosed haven filled with wilting ferns and the faint aroma of earth and decay. Potted palms arched overhead like silent sentinels, and a wrought-iron table served as his desk, strewn with notes, the torn scrap of paper from Victor's hand, and Maggie's bloodied glove, now sealed in a handkerchief for preservation. Captain Hastings bustled about, fetching tea and jotting observations, while Sergeant Wilkins hovered nearby, his scepticism toward the foreign detective tempered by Poirot's growing command of the scene. "Mon ami," Poirot said to Hastings, his voice a measured cadence amid the patter of rain on the glass roof. "The clues, they are like breadcrumbs in the forest. Some lead to the gingerbread house, others to the wolf. We must sift them carefully." He twirled his moustache thoughtfully, his eyes alight with the thrill of the chase. The investigation had intensified since morning. Wilkins' constables had cordoned off the boathouse, but Poirot insisted on a thorough search of the manor and grounds, believing the key to the locked-room enigma lay not in the impossible, but in the overlooked. First, they revisited Victor's bedroom, a masculine suite with mahogany furniture and views of the churning sea. Rifling through his desk drawers revealed a bundle of letters, financial statements showing the estate teetering on bankruptcy. Victor had been embezzling funds, siphoning from the pier's maintenance trust to cover personal debts. Favoured a similar shade, but so did Lady Evelyn for formal occasions. As the search extended outdoors, a red herring surfaced in the garden, a discarded cigarette butt near the cliff path leading to the pier, stamped with Victor's preferred brand, but bearing traces of ash that smelled faintly of opium. Dr. Croft, when questioned, admitted prescribing laudanum for pain but denied smoking. My leg aches, yes, but I don't indulge in vices. Yet his medical bag, earlier noted missing a morphine vial, now yielded an empty opium tin. Hidden? Or planted? Poirot gathered the suspects in the library for further probing, the fire crackling like interrogative punctuation. Lady Evelyn sat composed, but her fingers drummed subtly on the armrest. Those letters prove nothing, she insisted when confronted with the embezzlement. Victor was reckless, but I confronted him privately. No need for violence. Clara, her poise cracking, admitted to the affair's bitter end. He jilted me for money, that heiress. I wrote him angry letters, yes, but blackmail? Absurd. Her alibi wavered. A maid recalled hearing footsteps in the hall near her room at midnight. Reggie, fidgeting with his sketchpad, confessed his debt was dire, £5,000. Victor threatened to ruin my career, but I was painting waves from my window, see? He produced a damp canvas, the paint still tacky, depicting the stormy pier. Time-stamped? Impossible to verify. Dr. Croft's limp seemed more exaggerated under scrutiny. Test me, he growled, but when Poirot suggested a walk to the pier, he demurred. The damp aggravates it. A search of his cottage revealed a hidden drawer with old newspaper clippings of the 1915 boating accident. Sir Reginald's accusations circled in red ink. Revenge simmered. Maggie, ever the dutiful shadow, broke down slightly. I found the glove in the garden this morning, before the scream. Someone must have taken it from my room. Her diary, discovered in her quarters, entries ranting about Victor's ingratitude. He mocks my loyalty. One day he'll pay. A twist emerged from the village. Wilkins reported a telegram Victor received the day before from a London solicitor, disputing the will. Lady Evelyn benefits most now, the sergeant noted, but Poirot waved it off. A herring, perhaps, red and slippery. Deeper clues beckoned at the pier. Night, she claimed calmly. But Clara whispered to Poirot, Auntie rarely wears them outdoors, too risky in the wind. As evening fell, Poirot tested theories. The dagger, thrown from afar? He experimented with a similar knife, but the angle didn't match the wound. Poisoned oysters at dinner? But Victor skipped them, and toxicology from Croft, reluctantly provided, showed no toxins. A duplicate key surfaced in Reggie's studio, hidden in a paint tube. Planted, Reggie protested, I swear. Fingerprints? Wipe clean. Clara's French heritage sparked suspicion, a threatening note in French found in Victor's valise. Tu payeras. You will pay. She paled. My writing? Forged! The group's dynamics unravelled further over tea. Reggie accused Croft of blackmail over war secrets. Victor's role in Croft's son's death hushed up. Croft snarled back, Lies! Maggie defended Lady Evelyn but slipped. Victor deserved a reckoning. Poirot, assembling puzzle pieces mentally, smiled enigmatically. The red herrings swarm, but the true clue, it hides in plain sight. By nightfall, as thunder rumbled anew, a final herring. A bloody footprint on the pier matching Croft's boot size, but smudged, perhaps deliberate. The limp, Poirot mused. Is it feigned for alibi? The chapter of clues closed with Poirot in solitude staring at the sea. The web tightens, mon ami, he told Hastings. Tomorrow, the twists. Chapter 5. Complications and Twists. The evening descended upon Hawthorne Manor like a heavy velvet curtain, muffling the world outside, but amplifying the whispers of suspicion within. Hercule Poirot, ensconced in the conservatory with its rain-lashed panes, pored over his notes by the light of a solitary lamp. The clues from the day, the embezzlement letters, the planted glove, the duplicate key, formed a mosaic, yet pieces were missing, distorted by the clever hand of the perpetrator. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, paced nearby, his brow furrowed. It's a devilish tangle, Poirot. Just when we think we've got a thread, it snaps. Poirot looked up, his eyes gleaming with that peculiar intensity. Ah, mon ami, but the snapping, it is part of the dance. The complications, they arise to test the grey cells. Inspect. Indeed, the high tide, augmented by the storm, had scoured the area beneath the pier clean. The rope ladder they had found earlier dangled limply, half submerged, its fibres frayed beyond usefulness. Footprints, if any had lingered, were obliterated. The sea conspires with the killer, Poirot murmured, his voice barely audible over the roar. But nature, she is impartial. She erases for all. Back at the manor, drying by the fire, The household's nerves frayed further. Reggie Lyle, his artistic temperament ill-suited to scrutiny, cracked under the pressure. During the meal, as accusations flew, Clara eyeing Croft suspiciously, Maggie defending her misplaced glove, Reggie bolted from the table, grabbing his coat and vanishing into the night. "I can't take this anymore," he shouted over his shoulder. Alarms raised. Wilkins organised a search party, lanterns bobbing in the rain-swept darkness. They found him an hour later, huddled in his pier studio, sketches scattered like fallen leaves. "I panicked," he admitted tearfully as they escorted him back. "The duplicate key in my paints. I swear it's not mine. Someone's framing me." Poirot, observing his sodden state, noted no blood or mud that didn't match the storm. Innocent flight, perhaps, but it muddied the waters of trust. No sooner had Reggie been settled with a brandy than Clara Beaumont unleashed a torrent of her own. Seated in the drawing room, her face illuminated by the flickering hearth, she pointed a trembling finger at Dr. Croft. "It's you. Victor told me you were blackmailing him over that war secret. His role in your son's death, the cover-up. You demanded money or you'd expose the family." The room fell silent, save for the crackle of logs. Croft's face darkened, his limp seeming more pronounced as he leaned on his cane. "Lies, girl. Victor ruined me long ago, but blackmail? Preposterous." Yet, when Poirot pressed, Croft admitted to heated arguments. "He owed me restitution, for my reputation, my boy. But murder? I'd sooner limp to hell." The revelations cascaded. Maggie Thorne, cornered by Poirot's gentle but insistent questioning in the library later that night, confessed to a forgery. "The will clause," she whispered, tears streaking her cheeks. "Sir Reginald promised me more, a cottage, security." Secretly, but threatened to cut them off if I didn't yield on the pier sale. Silence for compliance. That was his game. Her pearls clicked as she adjusted them, eyes distant. I refused, but kill him? It would only bring scandal. Poirot's investigations uncovered yet another layer. A rumoured secret passage from the manor to the pier, whispered about in village lore. With Hastings and a lantern, he explored the cellars, dusty and cobwebbed, finding a bricked-up doorway behind wine racks. "Sealed since the smuggling days of the 1800s, Jenkins confirmed. Sir Reginald had it done, too dangerous. Chipping at the mortar revealed solid stone beyond. No entry. A dead end, or a clever misdirection? The greatest twist came with the dagger itself. Consulting Dr. Croft in his makeshift examination of the body, now laid out in a chilled-out building, Poirot requested a closer look at the wound. "The angle," Croft muttered, probing gently. "It's not a direct stab, more like thrown from above, or at an arc. Impossible for a standing assailant unless—" His voice trailed off. Poirot's eyes widened. Unless the killer was on the yacht's deck, or used a mechanism. But the yacht was empty. Tests with a similar blade confirmed. The entry suggested propulsion, not hand thrust. A rigged trap? Or an accomplice? Complications peaked that afternoon with an attempt on Clara's life. During tea in the conservatory, a tense affair with accusatory glances, Clara sipped her chamomile and collapsed, clutching her throat. "Poison!" Hastings cried. Croft, quick despite his limp, administered an emetic, saving her. The tea leaves, analysed hastily, revealed arsenic traces from the manor's rat poison stores. "Who served it?" Poirot demanded. Maggie had prepared the pot, but anyone could have tampered. Clara, recovering pale on a chaise, gasped, "The killer strikes again, to silence me." The household descended into paranoia. Locks were checked, food tasted warily. Wilkins posted a constable at the door. Poirot, piecing it together, theorised alliances. Perhaps Reggie and Clara conspiring, or Croft and Maggie united in grudge. A false clue emerged, a poisoned oyster shell from dinner, discarded in the garden. But Victor hadn't eaten them. Red Heron at its end loomed like a silent sentinel, its locked door a riddle that had confounded all but his indomitable little grey cells. Captain Hastings joined him, rubbing his hands against the chill, his face a map of eager anticipation. "Poirot, old chap, you've been awfully quiet since last night's poison scare. Have you cracked it? The locked room, the dagger, the vanished killer, it's all so impossible." Poirot turned, his green eyes twinkling with that rare spark of triumph. "Impossible, mon ami? No, merely improbable, until the method and the motive align like stars in the firmament. The revelation, it approaches. But first, we must assemble the players. For the denouement, it demands an audience. With a nod to Jenkins, who hovered discreetly nearby, Poirot issued instructions for the household to gather in the pavilion on the pier itself, the very stage where the crime had unfolded. There, amid the creak of boards and the sigh of waves, the truth shall echo. By midday, under a tentative sun that filtered through the clouds, the group convened in the grand pavilion, its Victorian ironwork casting lacy shadows on the weathered floor. Lady Evelyn sat at the head of a long table, her posture regal, pearls gleaming like accusations. Clara Beaumont, still pale from her brush with poison, clung to Reggie's arm, her eyes darting nervously. Reggie himself fidgeted with a charcoal pencil, sketching absent-mindedly on a napkin. Dr. Elias Croft leaned heavily on his cane, his gruff features set in a mask of weary resignation. Maggie Thorne bustled about arranging chairs, her efficiency a thin veil over trembling hands. Sergeant Wilkins stood by the door, arms crossed, his presence a reminder of official justice. Hastings took a seat beside Poirot, notebook at the ready. Poirot rose, his voice carrying with the clarity of a bell over the gentle lap of water beneath them. Mesdames et messieurs, we are here not for tea and pleasantries, but for the unveiling of a most cunning crime. Victor Hawthorne, stabbed in a locked boathouse, the door secured from without, the key in his pocket, no entry or exit apparent. An impossible murder, some say. But Hercule Poirot, he says, non, it is possible, and it is done by one among you. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Glances exchanged like poisoned darts. Lady Evelyn spoke first. It. Précisément, mademoiselle. Forged to implicate you. A red herring among many. The glove of Maggie. The duplicate key in Reggie's studio. The pearl earring of Lady Evelyn. All planted distractions. Even the arsenic in Clara's tea. A desperate act to silence suspicions. Reggie leaned forward. Then who? And how? The tide erased any tracks. The door was locked. Poirot smiled enigmatically. Ah, the how. It is elegant in its simplicity. The killer did not enter through the door, nor the windows, nor the roof. No secret passage, though we searched. Instead, from below. He paused, letting the words sink in. The loose floorboard in the boathouse, not just a smuggling hideaway, but a trap door, concealed beneath the planks, leading to the understructure of the pier. Hastings blinked. But the tide was high at midnight, submerged. Exactement. But consider the timeline. Victor's watch stopped at 11:45, not from the fall, but deliberately smashed by the killer to mislead. Death came earlier, around 10:30, just after the group left. The tide? Low then, exposing the sand and pilings. The killer, waiting beneath the pier, climbs a rope ladder, the one we found frayed, enters through the trap door, stabs Victor from behind as he examines the yacht, then exits the same way. The tide rises, erasing footprints, and the door remains locked, key in pocket. A stunned silence fell, broken by Croft's gruff voice. Preposterous. And this killer, agile enough for such feats, with the storm brewing? Poirot turned to him, his gaze piercing. Ah, Dr. Croft, you speak of agility, your limp, from the war, oui? Yet I observed. In moments of stress it lessens, a feigned exaggeration perhaps, to deter suspicion of physical prowess. Croft stiffened, but Poirot continued. The motive, not just the old lawsuit with Sir Reginald, but deeper. Victor caused your son's death in the war, a hushed scandal. As an officer, Victor's negligence led to the boy's demise in a botched raid. You discovered letters in Victor's possession, blackmail material he held over you, but you turned the tables, demanded restitution, met him that night to confront. When he It hid everything. Wilkins stepped forward, handcuffs ready. Dr. Croft, you're under arrest. Poirot bowed slightly. The grey cells triumph, but justice, it is bittersweet. As Croft was led away, the group dispersed in hushed tones, the pier once more a place of faded grandeur rather than death. Chapter 7. Justice Served. The pavilion on Silver Reed Pier, once a venue for merry dances and seaside teas, now bore witness to the sombre weight of justice. As Dr. Elias Croft's confession hung in the salt-tinged air, a profound silence enveloped the group. broken only by the rhythmic slap of waves against the pilings below. Hercule Poirot stood at the centre, his compact frame radiating quiet authority, his moustache as impeccably groomed as ever. Sergeant Wilkins, his face a mask of professional resolve, stepped forward with handcuffs glinting in the muted sunlight. "Dr. Croft," he intoned gravely, "you're under arrest for the murder of Victor Hawthorne. Anything you say may be used against you." Croft, the gruff physician who had tended to the village's ailments for decades, seemed to deflate before their eyes. His feigned limp forgotten, he straightened briefly, then sagged against the table, his cane discarded like a prop from a stage play. "It was never meant to end this way," he murmured, his voice cracking with the burden of years. "Geoffrey, my boy. Victor's negligence sent him to his death in those muddy trenches, and then he covered it up with lies and influence. When I found the proof, letters Reginald had kept, I saw a chance for restitution. But Victor, he mocked me, said the past was buried. In that moment, rage took hold." He looked around at the faces, Lady Evelyn's stoic mask cracking with pity, Clara's wide-eyed shock, Reggie's sombre nod, Maggie's quiet tears. "I didn't plan the poison for Clara. That was panic, fearing she'd overheard too much." Poirot inclined his head, his tone gentle yet firm. "Doctor, the little grey cells, they understand the pain of loss. But justice, it is not vengeance. It is the scale that balances all." Wilkins led Croft away, the doctor's steps steady now, unencumbered by pretense, as a constable's motor launch waited at the pier's end to ferry him to the mainland station. From the laundry to divert attention. He knew her resentment from village gossip. Maggie nodded gratefully, her spectacles polished anew, as if reclaiming her efficiency. The duplicate key in Reggie's studio, forged by Croft in his cottage workshop, a simple task for a man handy with tools from his medical practice. Reggie exhaled, his artist's hands unclenching. "And the pearl earring, madame?" Poirot turned to Lady Evelyn. "A clever touch, snatched from your vanity during a house call, to implicate you in the inheritance squabble." Lady Evelyn managed a faint smile. "You've saved us from ourselves, Monsieur Poirot. The estate, it will endure now, without Victor's schemes." Poirot waved a hand. "Ah, but the motives, they were real yet distractions. Clara's affair and jealousy, overheard by Croft during a consultation, used to forge the note in your script. Reggie's debt, public knowledge, easy to exploit. And the embezzlement letters? Croft placed them prominently, knowing they'd surface." Clara leaned against Reggie, her engagement ring catching the light, a symbol of mended futures. Hastings, notebook tucked away, interjected with his usual enthusiasm. "And the opium, the missing morphine, Croft's own supplies, staged to suggest poison over stabbing, muddying the method. Précisément, mon ami. The smashed watch, a final flourish to align with the high tide, buying time for escape. But the trapdoor, that was the masterstroke. Croft, familiar with the pier's underbelly from treating smuggling injuries in his youth, knew the old access. Low tide at 10:30 allowed entry. The rising waters concealed all." As the explanations flowed, a sense of closure settled. The village constable arrived with formal statements, papers signed in the library amid the scent of old books and wax. Lady Evelyn, in a gesture of gratitude, presented Poirot with an antique pocket watch from Sir Reginald's collection. "For your grey cells, monsieur. They've served us well." Poirot bowed, tucking it away with a flourish. By evening, as the sun dipped toward the horizon in a blaze of crimson and gold, Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart. The Morris Cowley idled in the drive, luggage stowed. The group assembled on the steps, Lady Evelyn at the fore, Clara and at the sea, thoughtful. "Oui, mon ami. Justice served. But mercy it whispers in the waves. The doctor, he will face the courts perhaps with leniency for his service and sorrow, but the lesson, secrets, like tides, always return." The train back to London awaited, the English countryside unfolding in twilight hues. Poirot, settling into his compartment with a sigh of contentment, reflected on the weekend that had begun as rest and ended in revelation. "The little grey cells," he murmured to Hastings, "they never truly rest." And so, peace returned to Silver Reed, the pier's lamps flickering like hopeful stars, the boathouse sealed once more, its secrets laid bare. The village whispered of the Belgian detective who had pierced the impossible, and life resumed its gentle rhythm by the sea. Chapter 8. Echoes of the Tide. Weeks had passed since the dramatic revelations on Silver Reed Pier, and the coastal village had begun to heal, much like the cliffs eroded by the sea yet enduring through the seasons. The year 1927 waned toward autumn, the North Sea turning a deeper shade of slate grey, its waves now lapping gently rather than crashing with the fury of that fateful storm. Hercule Poirot, back in his orderly flat on Whitehaven Mansions in London, had resumed his routine of tisanes, meticulous grooming, and the occasional consultation on baffling cases. Yet, the affair at Silver Reed lingered in his mind like the faint scent of salt on a well-travelled coat. "The human drama, mon ami," he confided to Captain Hastings over breakfast one crisp October morning. "It does not end with the arrest. It echoes, like the tide retreating only to return." Hastings, buttering his toast with enthusiasm, nodded vigorously. "Quite right, Poirot. I wonder how they're faring up there, Lady Evelyn and the lot. That pier, with its bloody history now, do you think it'll stand?" Poirot set down his cup with a precise clink. "Stand? Oui, but transformed. Let us see." He produced a letter from his pocket, its envelope bearing the Hawthorne Manor crest, the paper crisp and scented faintly with lavender. It was from Lady Evelyn herself, inviting reflection on the aftermath. She writes of changes, of peace restored. Tastefully, no garish amusements. Clara Beaumont and Reggie Lyle had found solace in each other amid the chaos. The scandal of Clara's affair with Victor had faded like morning mist, overshadowed by the greater drama of murder and revelation. Reggie, inspired by the events, had channeled his turmoil into a series of evocative paintings, stormy seascapes where shadowy figures lurked beneath piers, symbolizing hidden truths. One piece, The Locked Shadow, depicting the boathouse at twilight, had even sold at a London gallery, easing his debts without Victor's looming threats. Clara, drawing on her theatrical past, assisted in staging small performances in the pavilion, light comedies and musical revues to lift the village spirits. "We've set a date," Lady Evelyn noted with a touch of warmth. "A quiet wedding here at the manor next spring. Reggie insists on vows by the sea, where the waves can witness." Maggie Thorne, the steadfast companion, had emerged from the shadows of suspicion with her loyalty affirmed. The forged will clause, born of desperation, was forgiven in the wake of greater sins. Lady Evelyn, recognising years of devoted service, amended the estate provisions legitimately. Maggie now oversaw the manor's daily affairs with renewed purpose, her attic room upgraded to a sunny suite overlooking the gardens. "She's indispensable," the letter continued, "and happier now, with a small inheritance invested in village charities. No more resentments festering like untreated wounds." As for Dr. Croft, the tragic architect of the crime, his fate unfolded in the assizes at the county court. Poirot had followed the proceedings through newspaper clippings Hastings clipped dutifully. Croft's confession stood, but mitigating factors, his war service, the loss of his son Geoffrey, and the provocation of Victor's callous cover-up, swayed the jury toward mercy. Manslaughter, not murder, was the verdict, with a sentence of 10 years, eligible for parole in 5. "He tends to the prison infirmary now," Lady Evelyn reported. "A healer still, atoning in his way. The village misses his gruff bedside manner, but a young doctor from Edinburgh has taken his practice." Poirot, reading aloud to Hastings, paused at a poignant line. "The boathouse stands sealed," a reminder reflected on the broader lessons as he and Hastings strolled through Hyde Park, leaves crunching underfoot in autumnal gold. "See, mon ami, how one act ripples? Victor's greed begat Croft's vengeance, but from the ashes, renewal. Lady Evelyn preserves heritage, Clara finds love, Reggie creates art. Justice served, yet mercy tempers it." Hastings chuckled. "And you, Poirot? Another feather in your cap. The papers called it the impossible pier murder solved by Belgian sleuth." Poirot waved dismissively. "Pah, the papers. They sensationalize. It is the order restored that satisfies. The little grey cells, they rest, until the next puzzle. As winter approached, a final missive arrived from Silver Reed, an invitation to the pavilion's reopening gala. Poirot, tempted by the sea air, accepted, arriving by train on a frosty December day. The pier gleamed anew, gas lamps twinkling like stars. The boathouse transformed into a quaint exhibit hall with plaques detailing its history, sans the murder, tastefully omitted. Lady Evelyn greeted him warmly, pearls aglow. "Monsieur Poirot, you've given us closure." Over sherry in the manor, stories flowed. Clara's budding scriptwriting, Reggie's exhibition success, Maggie's charity work flourishing. Even whispers of Croft's letters from prison, remorseful, reflective. "He's found peace in service," Lady Evelyn said softly. As Poirot departed, the tide ebbed, revealing shells and secrets in the sand. "Echoes fade," he mused to Hastings on the train, "but the sea remembers." And so, Silver Reed endured, its pier a bridge between past and future, the bloodstains washed away by time and tide. Chapter 9. Whispers from the Waves. Months had drifted by like autumn leaves on the North Sea breeze since Hercule Poirot's triumphant unravelling of the locked room enigma at Silver Reed Pier. The year 1928 dawned with a crisp promise, the village awakening to softer rhythms under skies that seemed less burdened by secrets. The pier, once a stage for tragedy, now hummed with renewed life, its boards echoing with the laughter of day-trippers, the pavilion hosting weekend teas and amateur theatricals. Yet, beneath the surface calm, whispers persisted, faint as the foam on receding waves, hinting wed Reggie in a quiet spring ceremony as promised. Her words flowed with the grace of her theatrical past. "Dear Monsieur Poirot, the pier blooms anew, but a shadow lingers. Strange occurrences, whispers in the boathouse at night, items misplaced as if by ghostly hands. Lady Evelyn dismisses it as fancy, but Reggie swears he hears voices on the wind. Could it be unresolved echoes? We beseech your insight once more." Poirot's moustache twitched with intrigue. Ah, the impossible returns? Or merely the imagination, stirred by tragedy? Hastings, sensing adventure, packed their valises with alacrity. By train and motorcar, they returned to the coast, the sea air sharp and invigorating, the pier stretching like an old friend into the horizon. Hawthorne Manor welcomed them with open arms. Lady Evelyn, her silver hair now touched with a softer glow, greeted them in the drawing-room, where the fire danced merrily against the encroaching dusk. "Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, blessings upon you for coming. Clara exaggerates surely. The boathouse? Locked tight since the incident. But yes, oddities. Tools vanishing from the shelves, faint footprints in the sand at low tide that lead nowhere, and at night, murmurs like distant conversations." Clara, radiant in matrimony, elaborated over tea. "It's as if Victor's spirit unrests, or Croft's guilt manifests. Reggie heard it first, while painting at dawn. Whispers, monsieur. Names, fragments. Geoffrey, betrayal, hidden. We fear a curse upon the pier." Reggie, his bohemian flair undimmed, nodded solemnly. "The waves carry them, Poirot. And last week, a locket washed up on the shore, Victor's, lost years ago. Inside, a photo of a boy, inscribed G. Geoffrey Croft, perhaps?" Maggie Thorne, now the manor's chatelaine in all but name, served scones with clotted cream, her efficiency laced with concern. "I've seen shadows under the pier, monsieur, not smugglers, too ethereal. And Jenkins swears the yacht rocks on still nights, as if boarded by unseen feet." Poirot, his green eyes alight, proposed an evening vigil. The grey cells. They suspect not ghosts but the living echoes of unfinished business. Deliberate, led to a concealed cove. There, hidden in driftwood, a satchel, letters, yellowed and salt-stained, detailing Victor's wartime negligence. Geoffrey's effects, Poirot deduced. Washed from a hidden cache, perhaps dislodged by storms. The whispers persisted. That night, gathered in the pavilion, Poirot assembled clues. The voices, not spectral, but recorded in memory. "Reggie, your paintings, they capture the essence But listen closer. The words are from Croft's confession, echoed in tales told by villagers." A twist emerged. A local lad, Tommy, the fisherman's son, confessed sheepishly when summoned. I played pranks, sir, heard the stories, thought it'd draw more tourists. Whispers through a speaking tube under the pier, footprints stamped at night. The locket? Found it beachcombing, planted it for drama. Lady Evelyn sighed in relief. Mischief, not malice. Yet Poirot probed deeper. The letters, boy, they are real. From where? Tommy paled. Found them in the boathouse attic, hidden in a beam. Thought they were junk. Poirot examined them. Correspondence between Victor and Sir Reginald, confirming the cover-up of Geoffrey's death. The final secret, Poirot announced. Victor hid them to blackmail Croft, but forgot in his greed. Storms loosened the hiding spot, tides revealed. Justice, already served, found closure. The letters were delivered to Croft in prison, offering him vindication for his son, a petition for posthumous honour. Peace for the dead, Poirot said. As they departed, the pier whispered farewell, waves lapping like applause. Echoes fade, Poirot told Hastings, but truth endures. Back in London, Poirot filed the case with satisfaction. Silver Reed thrived, its mysteries now folklore, the sea a guardian of whispers no longer haunting. Welcome to Hercule Mysteries. I'm Elias Thorne. My dear fellow travellers through the mists of intrigue, how wondrous it is to welcome you back for the grand finale of our epic tale, Blood at Silver Reed Pier, a Hercule Poirot killer mystery. We've sailed through arrivals shrouded in fog, discoveries that chilled the bone, investigations that twisted like coastal paths, clues that misled, complications that stormed, revelations that dawned. The shadows of murder first darkened Silver Reed Pier, and the year 1928 drew toward its close with the crisp bite of winter winds sweeping across the North Sea. Hercule Poirot, the inimitable Belgian detective, found himself once more drawn to the coastal village, not by invitation this time, but by an inner compulsion. A whisper from his little grey cells that insisted on one final visit. The puzzle, mon ami, he explained to Captain Hastings as they boarded the train from London. It is solved, oui. But the legacy? It endures like the pier itself, weathering storms yet standing firm. Hastings, bundled in his overcoat against the December chill, nodded with his customary enthusiasm. Quite so, Poirot. After those pranks and whispers we unravelled last time, it'll be jolly to see how the old place fares. Lady Evelyn's gala, you say? The invitation had arrived weeks prior, embossed with the hawthorn crest. A grand reopening of the pier's pavilion, transformed into a cultural beacon for the village. Come witness the legacy reborn, Lady Evelyn had written, her script as poised as ever. Poirot, ever the connoisseur of human nature, sensed an undercurrent, perhaps a final thread to weave into the tapestry of the case. The train chugged into Silver Reed Station under a sky heavy with snow clouds, the platform dusted with the first flurries of the season. A chauffeured car awaited, courtesy of the manor, and, as they motored along the familiar coastal road, Poirot noted the changes. Fresh signage proclaiming Silver Reed Heritage Pier. Lampposts adorned with festive garlands, and villagers bustling with purpose, rather than the subdued hush of suspicion that had once prevailed. Hawthorn Manor gleamed under a fresh coat of paint, its ivy trimmed neatly, the gardens mulched against the frost. Lady Evelyn greeted them at the door, her black lace now accented with a brooch of sparkling sapphires, a touch of vitality amid her mourning attire. Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, how delightful! You've become part of our story here. The pier thrives because of you. Her eyes, sharp as ever, held a warmth that spoke of burdens lifted. Over luncheon in the dining room, oysters again, the locked shadow, inspired by, well, you know, Reggie, his beard neatly trimmed, beamed as he unveiled a framed painting, an ethereal seascape where the pier dissolved into mist, symbolising resolved enigmas. Sold a dozen like it, he said proudly. Debts cleared, studio expanded, and, Clara's expecting, our little artist-to-be arrives in summer. Maggie Thorne, elevated to estate manager, bustled in with coffee, her spectacles perched efficiently. All thanks to you, monsieur. No more forgeries or resentments, just honest work. She shared news of village initiatives, a fund for war orphans, seeded by the Pier's profits, in quiet homage to Geoffrey Croft. And Dr. Croft? Letters from prison painted a man transformed. He writes of redemption, Lady Evelyn said softly. Tending the infirmary, counselling inmates. The letters you uncovered, Poirot. They led to Geoffrey's name cleared posthumously. A medal even. Croft says it's eased his soul. As afternoon waned, the group strolled to the pier for the gala. Snowflakes danced in the air, blanketing the boards in a soft white hush. The pavilion glowed with strung lights, a brass band playing jaunty tunes, villagers mingling with guests in fur-trimmed coats. Poirot, sipping mulled wine, observed it all. Children skating on a makeshift rink at the pier's base. Artisans selling crafts in booths. The boathouse doors open to curious onlookers. Yet, amid the festivities, a subtle undercurrent tugged at Poirot's senses. Young Tommy, the prankster from their last visit, approached sheepishly. Monsieur, I've something to confess. Those whispers? Not all pranks. One night, after the gala prep, I found this, washed up. He produced a rusted tin box, salt-encrusted, its lid pried open to reveal faded photographs and a journal. From under the pier, dislodged by workers, Poirot examined it in the pavilion's light, Hastings peering over his shoulder. The photos, Sir Reginald in his youth, with a woman, not Lady Evelyn. A secret love? The journal entries, cryptic. Mentions of hidden fortunes and the yacht's secret hold. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured. A legacy beyond murder. Lady Evelyn, summoned, paled at the sight. Reginald's... he never spake. Your restorations disturbed the hiding spot. The sea whispered its secret. The discovery capped the gala with excitement. Announcements of a museum expansion, funds for the village. As fireworks burst over the sea, painting the snow in colours, Poirot stood apart, reflecting. The pier's legacy, not blood but endurance. Mysteries solved, fortunes found, lives mended. Farewells came at dawn, the train whistle piercing the frosty air. Another chapter closed, Hastings said contentedly. Poirot smiled. Chapters end, mon ami, but stories, they echo eternally. And so, Silver Reed Pier stood resilient, its legacy a blend of shadow and light, whispering to all who listened. And there, dear listeners, concludes our grand mystery. If Blood at Silver Reed Pier has kept you enthralled these many chapters, give it a thumbs up, share with fellow sleuths, and subscribe for the next adventure. Tell me in the comments, did the final twist surprise you? Where have you been listening from throughout? Until our paths cross again in the shadows of deduction, this is Elias Thorne, bidding you good night and sweet mysteries.